Hi, in today's video, we're going to explore the answer to the question, why do athletes take performance-enhancing drugs? PEDs, or performance-enhancing drugs, are banned in virtually all sports, but yet athletes still take the risk of taking them, even though there's also a lot of evidence about negative impacts on the body as well. So we'll explore why would somebody take those risks and take performance-enhancing drugs. So stay tuned for that. The first part of this video, we're going to look at how does performance-enhancing drugs actually help you? How are they working in the body to help improve athletic performance? Then we're going to look at kind of the psychological reasons, the psychological factors behind that decision-making process for somebody to decide to take those or not. Then we're going to look at those those social pressures to be able to perform that would lead somebody to taking those. We're going to look at financial aspects behind the reasons and motivation that somebody might take performance-enhancing drugs. And lastly, we're going to look at, once again, how that played out in the real world and how that impacted somebody's life. Performance-enhancing drugs are all about performance, right? So athletes want to perform better. They want to be able to run faster, throw harder, move more weight, right? You want to be stronger. You want to be able to go longer distances. You want to have better vision. All of those things drugs can help you do. So because it can help you improve your athleticism and your strength and all of those things, there's incentive to do that. So when athletes are competing, driven to be the best, looking at those outcomes as a measure of the best, looking at not just like your times and your performance indicators and how you're meeting those and not meeting those performance indicators, but are you winning, right? All of those kinds of things, when you're looking at those numbers and your drive by nature is to make those numbers better, that incentive, that drive to be the best, right? You're looking for any edge to do that. And depending on, your whole belief system, your value structure, you may look towards drugs, even though they are banned in most instances. You're going to look for those ways where you can compete to a higher and higher level. It doesn't matter whether it's strength, conditioning, endurance, any of those things. The other factor that has played into this use is recovery, right? In fact, doctors will prescribe steroids to regular people who've been injured to help them recover faster, to recover better. So athletes may use them, and they may even use them legitimately to recover from an injury. But in that whole process, they may also continue with that afterwards to continue to get those impacts. The other thing is recovering faster, particularly when you are a professional athlete or competing at world level. The sooner you recover, the sooner you can get back to competing, right? It's that competitive drive, that competitive nature. If you can accelerate that process, well, there's incentive for you to take those steroids. All of that about what they do for you kind of alludes to or touches upon those psychological factors, right? Where it's what is motivating you, that's a psychological factor. What's driving you, psychological factor. Those belief systems that you have around whether it's okay or not okay, and where's that line to cross in terms of trying to get better in your performance indicators and do better there. All of those things by very nature are psychological factors. They will all play in to why an athlete would choose to take performance-enhancing drugs or decline to take those, right? So those sort of pressures you put on yourself to perform better, those sort of internal kind of motivation things, all those are the psychological factors that are going to drive you in that decision making, that the very decision making strategy that you use, and the factors that influence that. Again, that's all psychological, and it's all going to play in to the decisions that you make around performance enhancing drugs. Put on top of that the social pressures. And those social pressures are actually going to influence the psychological pressures, right? So what are those social pressures? It's that desire to, again, meet performance that is expected of you, right? As you are out there in the athletic world and your name becomes bigger and more well known, and you want to continue to perform for your team or for your country or your community, your own pride, whatever, those factors are going to weigh into that motivation, right? Those being the man to, for your team and your organization, you got to get back on that court, you got to get back on that field, you got to recover from that injury. They need you down there, the playoff stretch run, all those sort of things might lead you to take those drugs. I got to get back on that field, right? It helps me heal quicker. I need to maintain a certain level of performance or even increase that level. I've got to look for that edge, those social pressures to be at your best, to bring your team, your country, your school to those higher accolades are all pressures that will influence that decision-making process. The higher up you go, the more financial incentives will begin to play in this. So when you're talking big-time college football, big-time college basketball, the professional levels of the four major sports in the United States, basketball, football, baseball, hockey, when you're talking about that aspect, or even Olympics caliber, right, and endorsements and all those kinds of financial incentives, if you are injured, if you are sitting on the sidelines because of an injury, you've got financial incentive to get back on the field. You want your team to be at the top. You want yourself to be at the top. You want to earn more money. You want to keep the money that you're earning. There's incentives to make sure you are performing at your best. If some of the competition you have is being suspected of cheating and they've surpassed you, there may be incentives for you to join them. Well, they're doing it too. It's the only way I'm going to be able to compete with them, right? Those financial pressures, along with those social pressures, it's all going to begin to factor in. And the more exposure and the higher levels you get to that higher level of competition, the greater those social, psychological, and financial pressures become. For a real life example, we're going to look at probably the greatest performance-enhancing drug scandal in the history of sports, and it was associated with American Lance Armstrong. And Lance Armstrong had become a hero to many because he had overcome cancer and then rose to be the peak in the cycling world and did something nobody had done, and American in particular, where America's cycling was not on that world-renowned stage that Europeans were. But he went to claim international fame and glory for winning the Tour de France, which is like kind of the crown jewel of cycling. And the Tour de France is a about 21 stage, over 2,000 miles, over 3-week bike race. And it goes through the Alps, so there's climbing the mountains and there's speed, sprint stages. There's a lot of different aspects that you need to be really good at to win the Tour de France. And he won it 7 years in a row. He had sponsorships from major endorsing people. He was a world-renowned figure, so there was financial pressures to maintain that. There was internal pressures to maintain that kind of reputation of being the top of your game, that competitive drive and competitive nature, pushing to be the best, put pressures on there. And for 7 years, he dominated cycling, winning the Tour de France and just being the name out there. And there was rumors and rumblings about he was cheating. He wasn't, he was taking performance-enhancing drugs. There was drug testing, right? He's going through, he's passing tests. He denied using performance-enhancing drugs. He denied it for years. And then finally, around 2012, through an intense investigation, both in the United States and internationally, because of all the people talking and saying and some evidence that was being leaked out, the evidence found to the great lengths that he went to do performance-enhancing drugs, using a lot of varying techniques and different drugs to improve his ability, endurance, sprinting, bike sprinting speed, and all those things, and hide it and cover it up. This became an enormous scandal. The 7 championships he won, the Tour de France championships he won, were stripped from him, banned from professional cycling for life. His fall from grace, well, you can imagine, took a real toll on his mental health, right? That whole drive and everything that pushed him to try to be the top ended up helping to create this fall from grace from the decision making that he made, and then all the pressures that he experienced during the competitive years, trying to be the best, making those bad decisions, and then on the underside of that, or the flip side of that, the impact, the consequences of those decisions and the mental health associated with that, and losing his endorsement deals and becoming kind of a negative poster child, had a huge toll on him. And he has spoken publicly about all of that, all the pressures that he felt, he internalized to succeed, leading him to make that decision, and then all the mental health aspects and its impact on relationships and everything else that we've talked about in numerous videos, how his fall from grace impacted all of that, and how his battle with mental health, both on the way up and after his fall, have tremendously impacted his life. Once again, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, check out our other videos. In particular, you might want to check out the video, Why is Mental Health Overlooked in Athletes? So check out that video today, and I'll see you in the next one.